All right, we'll call this meeting to order of the library board. First thing I want to do is welcome our newest member, Kelsey Hicks. We're very happy to have her. We now have a full board. And we are all here. No absences today, so that is great. So moving right along, we'll do the review and approval of minutes. And I will entertain a motion for approval if everyone has had a chance to look at them. Here you go.
I move that we approve the minutes as presented.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Don. Okay, we've had a motion to approve the minutes as presented and a second, and all in favor? Say aye. Oh, thank you. Okay. And then we move right along to the report of the librarian.
It's totally in the okay. So my report for February, two things that we'd been talking about for a while. The city council approved the library becoming fine-free at the February 22nd, 2022 meeting. I just like all the twos that ended up being for that meeting. And then also our interim city manager gave approval for expanding the library hours. And we started that on the 22nd as well because it was colder that week. So we just went ahead and opened a few hours earlier. So now we are open 10 to 6 Tuesday through Thursday and 12 to 4 Friday and Saturday. We will reassess the hours as we need. Looking at summer right now, being opening at noon on Friday is going to give us the ability to maybe do programs in the park on Friday mornings with the staff, and then we can go back to the library and not leave staff behind. New business that I've been up to. I met with the high school media specialist. We're talking about bringing some literature classes over to the library to introduce the students to the library and to get them library cards. We actually started inputting library card applications for one of the classes this morning. And probably at least 2/3 of the class do not have cards yet. So we're happy to be doing this. We are starting a 1,000 books before kindergarten program, which I've mentioned before. I've ordered most of the supplies. We're waiting for that to show up. And then we're going to, I'm hoping beginning of April, start advertising and putting out the word about that. It's a collaboration with the Friends of the Library to encourage parents and kids to read 1,000 books before they start kindergarten classes. And they can sign up, you know, now if they're starting kindergarten in the fall, even they can sign up right now and try to get there. We're trying to make it as easy as possible for kids and parents to get to that point and then give them lots of incentives along the way. Joy has added some additional hours to her schedule so that she can catch up on processing all of the new materials that I've been buying. She actually cleared off her third shelf that she was, or her third table. So she's slowly whittling down on some of that and getting it out to patrons. We've been seeing several people every day requesting library cards. The majority of them are city residents, but we're still getting, 3 or 4 a week of non-resident cards that we're doing, which we love everybody that gets a card. But it is going up, the number of new cards that we're seeing. And the majority of those are brand new. They've never had a library card with us before. A few of them, it's been a couple years, but the majority are just brand new. Almost all, yes. And we're hearing a lot of, I just moved to town. This is the first place I came. I had one person, they hadn't even, the house is still being built and they came in to get the card. We can now accept online payments for fees for lost or damaged items and for non-city resident fees. Working with the finance department, you can pay with credit card online now, which is awesome. It's convenient for people. We do have some non-residents that never actually make it into the library, except for when they were paying their fees, because they mostly wanted access to our electronic ebooks and audiobooks. Any questions with any of that I just talked about? Okay, collection updates. I've been updating and expanding the teen graphic novel collection, did some weeding of it, and then I ordered over 100 new graphic novel titles or volumes. And all of these are ones that the YALSA, which is Young Adult Literature, is part of ALA. Can I remember what all the acronyms are? They're from their, they have a committee that comes out with a great graphic novel list every year. They're ones that they whittle down and, approve of and say these are really good. They should be in every library's collection. So most of the ones that I added were from that list from 2021 and 2022. And then going forward, we'll try to add from that list every year when it comes out in January. Sarah is cleaning up our audiobook collection and making sure that the series that are listed on the labels match which the collection they're in, that the entire series is all together, matches where the book are. So if it's like in mystery, the audiobook is also in our mystery collection. It had been a little hit or miss before, so this is just kind of making it easier for patrons. We used to have a 100 books before kindergarten section and some ready to read books in the kids collections. Both of these were only in these collections because they had this specific grant money had been spent on these books, especially the ready to read books. They were just bought with a certain grant. That was the only reason that they were really in that tiny collection. So integrating them into they're mostly picture books, integrating them into the rest of the picture book collection is going to make it much easier for parents to find a book instead of, well, I want this title. Well, it could be here, here, here. So now there's like one place that they can look. We bought a new, I don't know, machine. I don't know what to call it. It's a little like taping machine that will help us put tape on the spines of any of our paperback books. Makes it much easier and faster. Joy mainly uses it, but our volunteers do as well. She says it saves at least half of her time and it looks much cleaner and straighter. A lot of books now are only being published in paperback. There's no hardback version. The adult fiction still is pretty much mostly hardback, and then a few months later they'll have paperback. But a lot of the teen books, science fiction, and even the juvenile nonfiction, they're just coming in paperback. So it's kind of hard for libraries that love their hardbacks because the hardbacks last a lot longer. But taping the covers will help them last a bit longer than if we didn't. We're continuing to add a lot of DVDs and movies and TV series. And a couple months ago, we had added out a children's collection that was more G and PG rated. And we're seeing really good circulation with those and people coming in and knowing where they can look for these titles now. And it's easier on patrons. They were just by basically the order we bought them. Now they're by title. And people can come in and just grab. We have one person going through alphabetically, just checking out 5 movies every few days. It's like next 5. So that's been fun. We received 2 family passes for the Museum of Natural and Cultural History on the U of O campus. This was initiated because coming up, our community reads is braiding sweetgrass. The museum at U of O is actually having an exhibit from the author of that book that will be there all summer. And so I contacted them to see if we could get some passes for that. And the person said, hey, just wait a month or so and I can give you passes that your patrons could just check out that will last forever. So those are almost ready to go out. They'll allow a family of 2 adults and 4 children to visit the museum for free. And then we're just trying to figure out how long the pass would check out for, probably 3 weeks, just so you could plan your trip. Like, we're the first library outside of Lane County to get these passes. And it's just because it just happened to be perfect timing. Any questions on any of the collection updates?
I don't have any questions. I just want to commend you on how busy you guys have been and making things available. And so pleased to hear about people coming in to get their, I just can't imagine anybody living without their library card. It's, but I guess not everyone feels that way, but I think it's great. I'm really glad to hear that. Good job, Megan.
Good. That's one of the reasons I asked Kelsey to be on the board. Is one of the first things she said when I was introduced to her is like, it's one of the first things I did when I came to town was go to the library.
Oh, you're so good. Great.
Onto building issues. Every month, there's a city group that does inspections of all the buildings. And then this time there was a new member and he hadn't been in the library before. So he was very thorough and he discovered that one of our fire exit doors has a lock on it. So fire exit doors shouldn't lock if it's not a lock behind you. So you can't get out of it, basically. Public Works came and took a look at it. They're not sure either. So someone from the fire department is going to come over when they have a chance and take a look at it and see what we need to do. And then we're having a little bit of flooring issues in the children's area because we're trying to make a little bit more space there because we had chairs piled in the corner for a while. Why we had the chairs there was because some of the tiles were chipping a little bit. And then there was a little bit of a hole in the concrete. So the Public Works Department's going to work on that. They're ordering some new tile and then some filler for the concrete.
Those aren't asbestos, are they?
I don't know. I don't think so. But the building was built in '69, so
Yeah.
it's hard to say. But right, for an interim, they just taped over them so they won't chip anymore until they can fix it in a more permanent way. Kind of related to the building, I've just been trying to add some more color to the building. I added some posters and other things around the children's area. We've brought back more of the toys that had been put in storage. I've bought some shelf dividers that I'm going to be working on adding them to our nonfiction collections, which will just make it a little easier for people to find particular parts of the collections. So they're like a red piece of plastic that kind of stick out a little bit that we can put a label on that'll say like cookbooks or dinosaurs or stuff that we know people are commonly looking for. It'll be a little easier for them to find it. In the teen zone area, I added some more bean bags and then a little bit of lighting. I'm hoping that'll help. And then we added our final armchair to the main area of the library. So now we have 3 new armchairs, replacing the wooden chairs that had been there since probably the building opened, if not before that. Any building questions, comments? It was one of the things when I talked with the librarian from the high school. She's like, the number one thing that kids are asking me is for bean bags. Like, okay, I'll get some more. And they almost always have some teens in them sitting there because they're far more comfortable. For programming, for Valentine's Day, we gave out around 65 bead kits to make the little heart ornaments. We handed out printout activities for Valentine's Day and for Black History Month. And then right after Valentine's Day, we started handing out St. Patrick's Day art kits, which is a watercolor thing. as of the end of February, we had handed out about 45 of them. We're up to close to 70 now. And then at the beginning of March, we started handing out some Dr. Seuss activities, some St. Patrick's Day activity pages, and then right after St. Patrick's Day, we're going to continue with some Women's History Month activities. In-person programming, briefly mentioned it before. Our community reads is going to be Braiding Sweetgrass. We had bought 15 books, which is about what previous community reads had, people had picked up the free book for. We ran out of those a couple days ago, so more on order. As soon as they come back in, we have a list of people going that are already asking about them. But discussions for the book will be on April 19th or April 20th. One is in the evening and one is in the morning. And somebody's helpfully put up a. So if you want to read the book and join the group to talk about it, whichever time works best for you. And then we'll have more, I'll put out an announcement. We have some more books ready. And then since the mask mandate is lifting on Friday, very late, might as well be Saturday, we're looking at some more programming for April, the in-person. And then the very last thing I have is just a very brief update about a new building. On Monday, the new interim city manager and Blair and we all met with the president of LBCC. This meeting had been planned since, I want to say November, but it kept being postponed for various reasons. Finally met with her and talking about a potential collaboration if we get a new building. LBCC is also looking for some new space in town. So we're kind of feeling each other out to see what we'd each want in a space or from each other. So it was a really good first meeting. That is all I have for my report. Are there any additional questions, comments?
One question, comment, whatever you want to call it. So if we do a collaboration with the LBCC, then basically what we've done or doing is taking all of the work and the expense that we've done and doing something else. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. It's just going to depend on what exactly they are looking for. They're looking for more of a collaborative open space for classrooms or something. Mm-hmm. But that's something that we also need for like programming and community meetings and other things. Mm-hmm. So it could just be some shared space and they would also provide some staffing. Okay. There's a lot of ways this could go, or it could not even happen at all. Mm-hmm. Okay. I have other questions about that, but I will do that a different way.
It is. You get to hear from me for the next couple of sections. So in your packets is the budget to actual fiscal report that you're used to seeing. The first thing I want to highlight is that very first line labeled donations, 500,000. So that is the check that we discussed at your last board meeting. It has finally been receipted. One thing that city code requires is that you as a library board do make a recommendation for the governing body as to when that comes in. One, recommendation to accept it, and two, a recommendation as to what that might be used for. And then the city council has to formally adopt or accept the gift in order for us to keep it.
Okay, so we've received it already.
We have received it, yes.
So now we need to make a motion to accept it.
Yes, a recommendation.
A recommendation to it. No, because the council does the
correct. Okay. And then I will take it to the council with your recommendation attached to it.
Okay, and then a recommendation for the use.
Yes. So the code specifically says, if I can get to the right screen. Let's see. The library board shall make recommendations for the acceptance, use, or expenditure of any real or personal property or funds donated to the library under section 2.12.050. So,
Okay.
we can go through the rest of the fiscal report and then come back to that in a minute so that you have some time to.
Okay,
We've all discussed, I think, what the intent
sure.
will be for that fund, for those funds, but certainly if there's another idea,
Okay.
then we should discuss it.
Sometimes we get in kind of a hurry, so don't let us forget to make that.
We'll come back to it before we move on to the budget discussion.
Okay,
How's that?
great.
Going through the rest of the report, it's all sunshine and roses, really. So bottom line is our revenues are coming in higher, as we've discussed, than anticipated. We've received another $1,400 nearly in current year property taxes, along with some delinquent payments. March will be this month. We'll receive likely a larger distribution because folks make it on a quarterly basis if they decide to spread it out. So I'm expecting another drop in March here that will push us over that 100% number. Going through the expenditures, we are, for this report, 8 months through the year. So 2/3 of the way through it. And our library expenses are in line with where we should be. The library staffing expenditures are lower than we would have anticipated. We've discussed that before, between staff savings and some vacancy savings before Megan was brought on board. So I'm not surprised with that figure. Going through the materials and service, Megan is doing her very darndest to spend as much as humanly possible, or so it sounds.
I did have a furniture delivery like 5 minutes before I got here, so
There we go. And we are sitting at about 50% of our expenditures for the year. So we're lagging slightly in that regard. But I have no doubt that Megan will continue to use that credit card to its full potential, and get stuff that the library needs, quite honestly. So I have no problem with any of those funds being spent. The contingency line at the bottom, you can see there, we always budget a contingency so that we have money in case something goes sideways. I don't anticipate needing that this year, so it will stay in the library fund. All in all, as far as the fiscal health for the library, we're in good shape. And when we move on to the next subject, you'll kind of get a additional synopsis on what kind of resources are available to the library down the road. So, unless there's any questions about the fiscal report itself, we can pedal back to the donation piece so that we can take care of some business there. So for the donation, as we discussed, I just need a recommendation from this board. One, to accept a recommendation to accept the donation, and a recommendation as to what you would like to do with those funds potentially. Certainly some things can change. The board in the past has discussed that money going to a new library, should that opportunity present itself. And then certainly if not, then the recommendation can change if that process is abandoned. I don't think it will be at this point, but just in case, that money can be reappropriated to something else down the road.
Brandon, do you need that motion to allocate the funds towards the improvement of the library? Is that what you're saying, or towards new construction?
That's up to the board. You could decide to set that aside for a potential new construction, or the board could recommend to the council that you want to make improvements to the current library building. That would be up to you all.
And is the $500,000, is that what we should anticipate as being the final amount? Because since I've been on the board, boy, it's gone from $1 million to 500,000.
So we discussed at the last meeting that that's only a portion of it. There were three groups that were set to receive donations from the sale of that land.
Right.
And in order to receive the full amount, each of those groups had to sign an indemnity waiver saying that if there are taxes due for that, then those agencies would be responsible for said taxes. One of the donating groups decided not to sign that indemnity waiver, and therefore the trust decided to hold on to a portion, the remaining portion of the funds, take care of any tax filings that needed to be done, pay any liabilities, and then distribute what is left. So we are expecting something in the ballpark of anywhere between 300,000 to 500,000. I couldn't tell you exactly, depending on what the taxes come out to on that. But we are expecting another drop in the future. I also couldn't tell you when, just because with tax filings and with extensions, this could go all the way until the end of the calendar year. They did not give us any indication as to when they expected that to be completed. And certainly with that said, you could recommend that the existing 500,000 be accepted along with future donations from this specific trust, from the Crystal Alhite Trust, with an earmark towards whatever you as a board decided, to cover kind of just one full swoop and not have to do this again.
Okay. Hey, I know we've discussed it in the past, and it's been my understanding that, and correct me if I'm wrong, any of you, but I believe that we had intended to use that money for a future library rather than expend more money on the existing one, except for things that need to be taken care of. But so anyway, if anybody wants to make a recommendation or a motion for the recommendation to accept this $500,000 and any potential use, and specify whatever you think.
I would so move
Or, okay,
accepting the funds.
okay, and for what use?
Allocation towards I don't know whether to put that towards future construction. I think that's the way I would put it, because that would allocate funds for existing building as well. It's a new building.
I'm sorry, rephrase or phrase that for me again. I think I might have misunderstood you.
Motion to go ahead and accept the funds from the trust. And you want an allocation of the usage, right?
It just says that this body has to make a recommendation for that, yeah.
Yeah.
You want that just for the new building or for repairs on the existing? That opens a lot of doors.
I think you could put that for construction. As existing building or the new building. You could do that by going ahead and allocating those funds, I think. Towards construction, which means you would be able to do it to the existing building or to a new building. My interpretation of that.
Any thoughts, anyone?
I agree with recommending to the city council that we approve the allocation from the trust. But I really want to see all of the money that we get from the trust only for construction of a new building. I don't want to use any of it on the old building.
Only towards the construction of a new building. That's fine. Somebody will come in and change it anyway.
Well, I was gonna say it kind of opens up lots of doors if you say just construction. I think that's my thought. But what does everybody else think? Jamie,
I second what Ava.
you're with Eva, or that phrasing, not for somebody. Okay, is that all right with you, Don, to put it that way?
So, Charlene, could you explain what you mean by leaves the door open for other interpretations of construction?
It's kind of my, well, it isn't kind of, it is my belief that when you make a suggestion, you want to be pretty specific, because if we were to say, or at least this is how I would look at it, and what I've kind of seen in the past is that somebody goes, oh, well, they just said construction. They didn't necessarily mean new construction. So we'll just do this. And if you just say construction and don't specify construction of either a new library or repairs on the existing library, somebody can come along and say, well, they just said for construction. That use was just for construction. And it's, you know, I think you need to kind of be more specific to kind of protect from that. I mean, it's not a sure thing. I know that, because people can play with words much better than I
Council has
can.
the final word on it. and
Correct.
They'll make the decision.
And they may say, like you did, we want to just use it for construction. Well, then don't be surprised if you have a new building somewhere else.
Well, even with this motion, it's.
Yeah, it's not
gonna
a,
be
it's not a
sure.
sure thing. Yeah. Okay, I think Susan
So-
did.
So my intent is that the money be used for construction of a new building, not on the old building.
Okay,
I was just going to say, Madam Chairman, that I think you're right, that having very specific recommendations makes things clear and harder to see gray in. And I also want you to know that the council takes your recommendations seriously. So if you guys are very clear on what you would like to see done, you guys know a lot of details that goes on. So I think being clear is helpful.
okay, do we need to, Don, do you need to want to restate it, or do you, we'll just, we kind of are usually say, fix it, Megan. Would you fix that motion, please?
So what I hear is a motion to recommend accepting the donation and to put the funds towards the development of a new library when applicable.
That's my understanding. Yes. Is that everyone? Just,
And just to be clear that, because you separated out the money that we have now versus money that we're going to get at a future date, that all of that money is
Mhm.
allocated to new construction or new building.
okay, we need a
It's
second.
nothing more than a recommendation of the
Right.
council anyway, so.
That's true, but I think still, you know, like Susan said, the council does take what we say, and if we're not, I guess it's like you need to be clear about what you're saying, because if you don't specify, sometimes people, and I don't mean just council, I don't mean the guy down on Main Street. It's like if dealing with, I don't like to put it this way, but I will. It's like with children, if, you know, be specific about what your expectations are. I just find that, I believe anyway, that things work out better that way. People know what your intent really was. And I've learned doing motions and writing motions for years at the city that sometimes those can kind of get gray and muddied. So anyway, so we need a second. Moving this along.
I will second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Dawn to recommend acceptance of the money and for the use to be for construction of a new library. And we will send that recommendation to City Council. And it has been seconded by Jamie. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and the motion is unanimously approved.
Perfect. I will put that together for the council for their next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
All right. If you're ready for the next section, that's mine too. So I'll
Yep.
just kind of keep rolling then.
All right.
The code for that establishes the library board also says that the library board shall approve the budget request prepared by the library director for submittal to the budget committee. We are rolling in our budget process. Submittal to the budget committee will happen April 4th,
Okay.
as was announced at their last council meeting. That'll be when the budget message is read, and when we'll hand out the actual proposed budget from the city. So with that being said, we thought it prudent to bring before you what the budget looks like to date, what we are planning for next year. Get any of your feedback, make any changes that you would wish to make, and then get a motion of acceptance of the budget, either as amended or as it currently stands. So I'll walk through it real fast. Megan's looked this over, has indicated that she doesn't have any changes to make at this point. We will go from there. So the first thing I want to highlight is the beginning fund balance. You'll notice, so there are 4 columns of numbers. The middle column labeled 2021 actual. If you flip all the way to the bottom of that section, unappropriated ending fund balance at the end of 2021 was $683,784.33. That is a lot higher than we had projected for the 2022 budget, which saw beginning fund balance budgeted of basically 12,000. So a lot of leftover money in the library fund, all to remain in the library fund, and we're happy to see it there. But given current expenditures as they have and the revenues forecast that we've seen and discussed previously, I'm estimating a beginning fund balance of $533,000 for the library, beginning at the start of fiscal year 23, which begins this coming July. For other revenues, I'm budgeting a 7.6% increase from the budget previously. A lot of the variation here from, you can see in the past fiscal years for 2020 and 2021, they had figures of $28,000 and $80,000 in revenues. I don't typically budget for grants. And the reason for that is grants fluctuate a lot. We could certainly expect that grants may happen, but also given economic conditions, they aren't a foregone conclusion. And so I don't generally budget for grants unless we are sure that we're going to get one before the budget is locked in. So that's some of the major variation there. On the interest side, we're not projecting much in the form of interest. You can see in 2021 that actual interest earnings was just below $4,000. Interest rates haven't yet climbed out of the hole. So we are going to leave it at 4,000. Anything else is gravy, so to speak. And will remain in the library fund based on their cash, what cash they have on hand. The interest on taxes is just money given to us by the county. We receive for interest paid by folks that have delinquent property tax payments. So we get that once a year. And then we always have some miscellaneous revenue, so I threw in $3,000 there. On the property tax side, we're looking at more good news for the coming fiscal year. Property tax values in the 97386 zip code, which yes, includes stuff outside of Sweet Home, but the best that we can kind of use for the moment. Property tax values ending January of 2022 were 24% higher than the prior year. With that said, we anticipate yet another reduction in compression. So for those of you that are new to the library board, compression happens when real market value of a property is closer to assessed value. There are 2 different taxing rates, so to speak. It's a long discussion that I'm certainly happy to have with you if you want to hear about property taxes, and I love them, so I'm happy to discuss them. But we'll leave it at right now that compression in the past for the library and the police department have been upwards of 35%. for next fiscal year, we're looking at 8%. That was 35% just 5 years ago. So a massive change in the last 5 years. We're sitting at 11% this year. So continuing decline is a great thing. So a 10% increase in the property taxes to account for just general increase that we usually receive and a drop in compression. And then I left a $10,000 delinquent property tax line there for total property taxes of $570,000. And on the library fees component, I cut half of it, given that you and the city have gone Vine free. The city specifically related to the library, I should add. So I just left it at $2,500, and we'll kind of see where that falls in the next fiscal year. So with the beginning fund balance and all of those revenues, total revenue into the library of $1,114,000 and change, a 6.6 or 6.7% increase for the year. On the staff pay side, not much of a change in the overall staff pay from the existing budget for the current fiscal year. A small decline just based on shifts in, well, for example, the library director, Rose was at the top step. Megan is working her way there. So that's really where the difference comes from. As far as the library assistants, we do have 2 of them budgeted back at 3/4 time, the 0.75 FTE that was there before, and a half-time FTE for the third one. So 3 total FTE for the library. And then you can see the employee benefits budgeted based on each specific person in the lines below that. For capital for next year, I am proposing $100,000 to begin a process with an architect. Generally, I don't remember why I picked on. How much is your building going to be? In my head, I thought $1 million, but it's going to be more than that. I budgeted $100,000. We may need more. But I think $100,000 will get us started in this process as we go further into it. We have the potential to change that with a supplemental budget if we need to. Yeah, so I don't know why I just did 100. Yeah. All right. Materials and service. Most of this has only changed. I added 3% to the current year's budget. That is what the city is allocating to all the departments for the most part, those that can afford it anyways. So a 3% increase in each of these lines. I am proposing a 13.5% increase on insurance because our insurance carrier, City County Insurance Services, has informed us that insurance rates will go up for the next year in property and casualty. They say 12%. So I just kind of rounded it off, and it's such a small number. It threw that percentage a little bit higher. So $6,300 for insurance next year. And then the other major change is down in the electricity line. You see an 8% increase. If you haven't seen it already, Pacific Power has requested a 12 or 14% increase to the Oregon Utilities Review Board. Generally, that does get cut down. It doesn't usually stay that high. It's one of those things, shoot high and come back to the middle somewhere, and you get something closer to what you really want. So I did budget 8% increase for electricity rates in the next year. And then the last 2 lines in materials and service, administrative charges for service covers city manager, city council, a portion of those administrative expenses. It is a 7% increase because, as you might be aware, we're in the process of searching for a new city manager. And we have we have a proposal. Council will obviously have to set a rate, but we have a proposal for the new manager, the salary rate being higher than what the current former city manager was making at the time. So that's the only reason that line is up. And you can see that I've done my very best to bring our finance charges down. So I've dropped those nearly 14% for the coming year. Everything I can do to keep both of those lines as low as possible, I promise you we are doing. Transfers out for capital, 308,000 for the next fiscal year. Some really exciting news that I wanted to share with that 308,000 and what we are forecasting for the next 5 years. I estimate that we will be able to put away about $1.5 million in the 5 years for the library to put towards a new building if that is what is eventually adopted. So that's really exciting for us. Doesn't add anything to the city's pocketbook at that point, at least not for that $1.5 million, and should get us quite a ways down the road during the planning stages with those funds available. So I'm really excited about that piece. Contingency line we talked about previously. I budget a 3% contingency on all expenses, and a 2% contingency on top of that for all personnel lines to cover vacation payouts, changes in benefits, whatever the case may be during the year. If that contingency is not spent, it remains in the fund and goes into the available fund balance at the end of each year. So a small increase just based on the overall expenditure increases for the library, which will likely remain. At the end of the year, an unappropriated ending fund balance of almost 245,000. That is about 6 months of operating expenditures. So if something happened with revenues, we'd have 6 months of cash on hand to be able to operate. Typically what this is for is to offset property tax revenues. So generally we don't start to see property tax revenue until November in its full capacity. And so that makes sure that we have enough cash on hand to get us through the first 4 months of the fiscal year. And then some. So that's everything I do have in there. One change I would like to make as I was sitting here. Well, this was already in your packets, but I read this afternoon that Northwest Natural is requesting from the Oregon Utilities Review Board also a very large double-digit percentage increase for the coming fiscal year. So I would like to throw, instead of a 2% increase in that natural gas bill, I'd like to throw 8 at it, just like I did with electricity. So before we submit that to the budget committee, that would likely be the only change I would make with your blessing. Beyond that, if you have any recommendations or other changes you would like to make, we're happy to take them. As the code says, you shall approve. So until you're comfortable, make whatever changes we need to make and then let you send this on to the budget committee with your blessing.
Just a question, Brandon. You're talking about changing the natural gas to 8%. Do you think there's and I don't know how this works. Maybe they don't go to the commission for increases, but does the phone and internet also do their funds or their charges come? Do they have to have approval from?
I don't believe, so our internet services, we actually have 2 in that building, I think. Comcast and CenturyLink, or Lumen now, I guess, formerly known as CenturyLink. I don't think they have to take their rates through the utility board. It's just for essentially, we'll call them essential utilities that provide folks with heat and lights. Okay.
So we don't need to consider that on any of the other.
Correct. And I did put 3% in there. It may or may not change. We're actually, as far as our internet service for Lumen, in the last year of our contract with them, so I don't anticipate any increase in that rate.
Okay.
I don't know what Comcast is going to do. So 3% gives us a little bit of room if we need it. And if not, Megan has additional money in her bottom line that she can use. So one thing we do tell department heads as we go through the year is, as long as you don't overspend what your bottom line says for expenditures,
right,
go. So if there is savings in, for example, internet, Megan could use that elsewhere.
Okay. Understood. Thank you. Okay. Right. Thanks, Brandon. So what do you need from us now? Do you need us to, let's see, April, I think you said was the April 4th.
So we do need kind of for you to flip over this, and if there are things you want to kind of delay a discussion on, we could potentially do that. We'd need to set another board meeting for before that goes to the budget committee.
Okay, so we need that recommendation for April 4th. So
Yeah.
we need to do that today if we're going to do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I will entertain any recommendation from the rest of the board. Or recommendation for, okay.
You want a motion to approve the proposed budget to the city council.
is
To the
that-
budget committee, but
Okay.
yes,
Okay,
that's what I need.
okay, that's what we need. Don? Or anyone else. Or
I
any-
would make that motion.
I'll second.
Jamie, is that you?
Yeah.
Okay. So Don made a motion to
Approve the
approve,
budget.
thank you. I didn't know if I wanted
The
approval,
proposed.
the proposed approval for the proposed budget as presented. And that motion was seconded by Jane and all in favor.
Aye.
And that is approved unanimously. So go, Brandon.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I am now done. You don't have to listen to me anymore.
But you do so well. Okay, what now? Let's see here. We want more in-depth discussion about the 100 books before kindergarten program. And is that?
If you
where we
want
are?
to.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to hear what's the source of this program?
So the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten is a national program. It just is there to encourage parents to be reading with their children before they start school. I don't know off the top of my head the percentages of the more you read to your kids, the more words they're exposed to, the better that they will do in kindergarten. And that's something that we really need to work on, and everybody needs to work on that. But it's something that the school district is very interested in also happening. We're thinking about also at the end of the program, they get a backpack with the supplies that they need to have to start kindergarten so that they can start off on a better foot as well. It's something that a lot of libraries are starting to do, and it's a very good program for literacy.
So I understand that, but was it started by ALA or by the feds or by where did this come from?
I will look that up real quick. So there is the website is 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten, so that's really helpful. So the 1,000 Books Foundation is a nonprofit under for IRS. Let's see where they came from. I think it looks like it was just founded within with the assistance from ALA, but not directly with them. Started looks like one of the places that started with was New York City Public Library. And then it's giving me lots of pop-ups. So the founding sponsors are ones that I've never heard of. Lou and Associates Law School, attorneys at law, I mean, Borges Legal and Zenistar. They're out of Las Vegas, but that's just the founding sponsors. That's not necessarily who sponsors it now. And then Legia made some beautiful graphics that we're going to be using for certificates with every 100 books that the kids read.
Thank
So-
you.
It current sponsors nationwide. Never heard of a lot of these, but the Elks Foundation is one of them. I can bring more information next time if you'd like as well.
I've got the website here. I'll look at
Okay.
it some more.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions on this, or I have to be honest and I'm sorry, mate.
Do we already have, like, do we have enough books or like have any ideas on books that we're gonna get for
Yeah,
the kids?
we have, I would say at least if for just checking out books from the library, there's probably at least 15,000 in the children's section. It's about half of our collection. It can also be that you read the same book 1,000 times if you really wanted to, because we know how some kids just get obsessed with one book and that's all they want to read, as Jamie, I'm sure is soon going to find out.
That's definitely my kid.
Yeah.
100%.
So it's books that they can check out from the library. It's books that they will get from relatives or friends, or any book that they want. It's that hop on pop that you're going to read every night for 4 years or something. Along the way, some of the prizes will be books as well. We're also going to encourage that they sign up for the Dolly Parton Imagination Library, which would send them a book every month for free. There'll be registration information for that'll go into their starting packet. So they can get, with their library card, they have access to books from Lebanon, SIO, Harrisburg, Albany, LBCC, even if I don't know the little kids would really want books from LBCC, but they do have access to that as well. So there is a large amount of books that they could have access to without having to spend anything or even do anything more than come into our library.
Okay. So anything else?
Statistics real quick.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Yes, you do.
So I just wanted to point out a few changes I made with the spreadsheet for the statistics for this month. After talking with our city communications person and looking at some of the state stats that, because every library has to report numbers for a wide variety of things to the state library every year. That's released in January. We're talking 40, 50 page spreadsheets here. People that love statistics love just looking at this thing because every library across the state is reporting. But one of the things is with the circulation and renewals, that report does divide things out into like checkouts, the items that are renewed, and then the electronic checkouts, and then reports that as a total number. So I am giving you guys that total number here to see so you can really see how many items we actually are checking out. And it is much higher than if you're just looking at first time checkouts. So, you go from before, you might be looking at it, it's like 4,700 year to date. So this month would be 2,369 for just checkouts. If you're adding in renewals and the audio and ebook checkouts, we're closer to 4,000 checkouts for the month. So that really gets our checkout number up there, and that's what libraries themselves are reporting as their checkout numbers. So I just wanted to keep us in line with that. That is all I really wanted to point out, but if you have other questions about the statistics, I'm happy to answer.
Anyone? Okay, thank you, Megan. So if no one has anything else, our next library board meeting is April 14th. Is that correct?
Yep.
And we will meet here and maybe without masks. Fingers crossed. Everybody be good. Okay. Anything else? If not, we will adjourn this meeting at 5:30. Instead of 5:27.